This video will be an update on a couple of Columbus-based sports teams, starting with the Blue Jackets winning their Traverse City tournament group and the Prospect Tournament, finishing 2-1, and their goal differential of +4 was the best of the other teams with the 2-1 record. So they take first place over the Red Wings, Maple Leafs, and Stars prospects. The top prospects for the Jackets did sit out in the final game since the last two were a back-to-back, no need of risking injury there. Adam Fantilli had a pretty impressive time in Traverse City, scoring 7 points in the 2 games that he played in, and against the Red Wings he had a hat trick and a 5-point game as well. Jordan Dumais putting up a decent number of points. Once again, he seems to just put up points everywhere he goes. I'm not sure if he quite makes it on the NHL roster this season, but he does seem poised for, at the very least, another very dominant year in the QMJHL. Another solid Traverse City appearance for David Jiricek and Stanislav Svozil. Jiricek obviously a hopeful to make the roster. Maybe Svozil might be another year away from the NHL club, but he's definitely going to be an impact player at the very least for Cleveland in the AHL. As far as goaltender goes, the Blue Jackets didn't really play anyone that looked ready for high-level play in Traverse City. Both Pavel Kahan and Nolan Lalonde still looking like they could use some time in maybe some junior leagues or at least some of the minor leagues of hockey, maybe the AHL at the very most if there's a couple injuries to goalies in the organization. They have to shuffle some cards around a goaltender, but besides that, I really don't expect to see much out of either goaltender this season. Maybe they develop into something great in the next coming years, who knows. But overall, the tournament was obviously pretty good for the prospects, giving the fans a good time on the ice, a little bit of a distraction, despite everything else off of the ice essentially falling apart this week. And speaking of that, the Blue Jackets did have a press conference today, and this was just a day after the resignation of Mike Babcock was announced. Before the press conference even began, the Blue Jackets ownership releasing a statement essentially saying that they weren't going to be firing Jarmo or JD at the moment. They say that, the expectations for this season are still achievable, so they're going to wait to see how the year plays out. I felt like the content of the press conference was mostly bland. They did have some time to prepare what they were going to say. Jarmo and John Davidson both admitting that the Babcock hiring was a mistake, which I still find pretty bland because, he resigned. Of course it looks like a mistake now. That's not exactly breaking news. Basically, they kind of went with the sentiments of, it's time to move on. Pascal Vincent is the guy now. He's going to do a great job, and they're just trying to really kind of shift the focus towards the upcoming training camp and getting into the regular season without much more distraction. I did think one interesting thing was when JD was asked about whether or not Mike Babcock had his contract terminated for a cause or whether or not he received the payment for the contract he signed. John Davidson basically giving that a no comment, saying that there were discussions and an agreement was eventually made, but didn't get into any of the specifics on that. So who knows if Mike Babcock got any of the $8 million that he signed to be on the team for, given that he resigned, and maybe with some of the other stuff that might come out of this NHLPA investigation. I'm leaning towards that he probably didn't get much of that $8 million figure, but I guess if he did, that's even more of just a black eye on the organization that they gave a guy $8 million who not even coach a single training camp practice for the organization. But again, reading some of the context clues, I'd be surprised if Mike Babcock got a large portion of that money. A few of the players spoke at this conference as well. Boone Jenner, Johnny Gaudreau, Zach Werenski, Patrick Laine. No real bombshells there either, although Werenski did have a little bit of a interesting quote where he said that a lot of the feelings for him, at least, on the topic was kind of 180 in a couple days span. Pascal Vincent spoke at this media availability as well, had a similar sentiments to the front office where it was, kind of we're going to be moving on from this a bit like the next man up mentality where he was the head coach now. He had this nice little quote where he said, if the players work hard, it'll be fine, but if they're not going to work hard, there are going to be some chats. So kind of saying that, he's going to be easy to work with if the players work with him, but if the players are going to low for him, there might be some issues there. And this Babcock situation, despite him being resigned and gone from the organization now, that is going to be following them around for pretty much this entire season unless they really start winning at an impressive rate, unless they can just get out to some crazy good start, kind of like they did a couple years ago, and they can sustain that success. That'll probably become less of a story. Maybe that'll even turn into this was actually something that united the team and helped them moving forward. But if they do struggle out of the gate, or even if they do have a good start, if they eventually come crashing down to earth and playing to the average of what a lot of people expect this team to play like, then this Babcock situation is going to be kind of just something that is put over the heads of the organization for this entire year and perhaps beyond, depending on how long the Blue Jackets stay without success. And then we're moving on to the Columbus Crew, losing to Orlando City 4-3 on the road on Saturday. Especially painful result considering that they were up 3-1 in the second half of the match. You had Cucho Hernandez becoming the fourth player in club history to achieve 10 goals and 10 assists in an MLS season. You had Diego Rossi scoring his 50th MLS goal. So there were a couple milestones reached for a couple of high-level players on the Crew, but you know, it was a match that was going so well until suddenly it very much wasn't. Poor defending, especially off set pieces, was a major culprit for this disaster, as has been the case for the past few years now for the Crew. Wilfred Nancy's sub choices also called into question, I think rightfully so. Yevon Cheberko and Kevin Molino having almost a negative value, although Kevin Molino did have some decent plays in this match, but Yevon Cheberko especially has just kind of been disastrous ever since he got on the club. And on the final goal, the game-winning goal for Orlando, Patrick Schulte having a bit of a rare mishap. He was way out of position on that set piece, left the goal pretty much unattended for the easy score there. The Crew had some real chance to gain ground in the MLS East, and now they're going to have a pretty tough time even getting a home game for the postseason, which does kind of stink because the Crew have been very much Jekyll and Hyde at home and on the road. They've been very good in Columbus at lower.com. It's been a good atmosphere there, but on the road, they've certainly encountered a lot more struggles. I know with most sports teams, they're better at home than on the road, but for the Crew, it's definitely been a case of extremes. There was even time for them to, there is enough wiggle room for them to, I guess, fail to make the postseason, although that would require a tremendous late season meltdown from the Crew. And they are back at home to play Chicago on the 20th. The Chicago Fire will be desperate to get 3 points for their hopes at a postseason push, so they're going to be coming in fired up, but the Chicago Fire have not been very good as of late, haven't really been getting the results, so that should be a fairly easy 3 points to get for a Crew team that's kind of looking for something good to go their way. But again, the Chicago Fire, they're not going to just lay down and give the Crew 3 points. The Crew are going to have to take care of business and get that done. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did make it this far into it, leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more like it. You can let me know in the comments what you think about the Blue Jackets and the Babcock situation and the Crew and how they played against Orlando and how they're going to look moving forward. If you'd like to, I'll see you at the next one.